Outrageous Chapter 28. Lu Zhi Wei held onto her phone tightly, as if she was trying to hold onto this warm dream. There was blissfulness in the dream, and there was also a version of her who would not be forgotten. There was everything she once dreamed of but couldn't get. The stuttering Xiao, he would have someone to remember her. The transparent Lu Zhi Wei would also have someone to remember her. They would no longer be alone. Wan Ci stood by her window, looking at the show as she held her phone. She remembered Lu Zhi Wei's birthday. She remembered her talking about her low sense of existence. She remembered that surprised and happy expression when she was asked about her birthday. It was genuine, not an act. So Wan Ci wanted to personally wish her happy birthday, even if it's over the phone. She wanted to tell her, there's someone who will remember your birthday. They'll remember you. Hearing the hoarseness in her voice, Wan Ci asked gently, Lu Zhi Wei, are you crying? Even over the phone, Lu Zhi Wei was embarrassed. She wiped away her tears roughly and cleared her throat. No such thing. She laughed. Teacher Sang wished me happy birthday right at midnight. Such a joyful thing, how could I cry? Wan Ci didn't believe it. Her voice was gentle with a trace of compassion. Don't cry. Lu Zhi Wei had barely kept her tears back, and they surged again at that moment. Humans really are odd creatures. No matter how hard they try to build up their own defenses, as long as they hear a gentle word from someone beside them, their walls will immediately collapse and they'll surrender. She pressed her lips tightly together, trying to suppress it. But in the end, the tears won, squeezing silently from her eyes. Thank you. In the end, it was these two words again. She found that she didn't have anything else to say to Wan Ci. Wan Ci really did live up to her name, with the last word in her name meaning compassion. Compassionate and kind. Gentle and mesmerizing. She will forever be worthy of being liked. Wan Ci suddenly recalled how Lu Zhi Wei looked like when she cried on set. It was the day she finished her scenes and they were all giving her flowers. That day, her expression was filled with disbelief, as if everything in front of her was a hallucination and would burst like a bubble if she touched it. Because she never experienced it before, so she didn't know what to do. In the end, she could only silently tear up. The her then was like the her now, only being able to say two words, thank you. It was like she didn't have anything else to say. It was like she didn't know what else to say. She just didn't expect other people to care about her. Wan Ci didn't want to see her like this. She couldn't bear it. I bought a present for you. Wan Ci opened her mouth gently, trying to distract Lu Zhi Wei. Her voice was warm and polite, but I don't have your address, is it okay if you tell me where I can send it to? Lu Zhi Wei was shocked. How could I make teacher Sang go to such expense? It was already enough that she had waited till midnight to wish her a happy birthday. How could a contented person even dream of more? It's very normal to exchange birthday gifts among friends, Wan Ci said. Besides, I'm not the only one. Lu Zhi Wei. What does that mean? Wan Ci had no intention of explaining to her. I'll hang up first. Remember to send me your address. Lu Zhi Wei. Wait. The line dropped. Without hesitation, Lu Zhi Wei looked at her phone suspiciously, then realized there were quite a few messages from WeChat. Xiao Ying, wishing our teacher Lu a happy birthday. Rose Trumpet Rose Trumper Rose. Xiao Ying, I specially waited till midnight to wish you, Si, I really am a good little brother. Xiao Ying, wasn't sure if you slept, so I didn't dare to call you. Xiao Ying, I passed your present to teacher Sang, she said she'll help me mail it to you. Xiao Ying, I'm going to sleep, I still have to work hard for my Lamborghini tomorrow. Chat tomorrow. The originally silent chat box was immediately made lively and active by Ying Xi Ze, with happy stickers all over the screen. Almost like a playful child who was afraid she wouldn't see his wish. Lu Zhi Wei's eyes suddenly felt hot. The disobedient tears blurred her vision again and again, and she wiped them away again and again. Her finger scrolled across the screen, reading these messages again and again. So even he remembered. Not just. Far from it, she saw other people sending her messages just now too. She sniffed and went back to the chats. She wiped her eyes and looked at the list, stunned. Si Jiao. Her own blood-related sister. Si Jiao, sis, happy birthday. Si Jiao, I forgot to wish you at midnight because I was studying. After 2 minutes, a new message came in. Si Jiao, happy birthday, you must be happy forever. Lu Zhi Wei could tell, Si Jiao didn't know what to say to her. The two of them didn't talk much. Even though they were biological sisters, they were two strangers in reality. You don't understand me, and I can't figure you out. When the need to talk arose, it would certainly become awkward. But at least Lu Si Jiao remembered. She remembered her sister's birthday for once. Sang Wan Ci, Ying Xi Ze, Lu Si Jiao. And even Wen Yao wished her. They remembered her birthday, and remembered her. In this moment, she finally realized that she was also a person who had the right to desire things. She sat leaning against the headboard of her bed, replying to Lu Si Jiao and thanking her as the tears kept flowing down her face. Her heart was boiling over with warmth. She was elated, feeling as if this winter was no longer as cold. The next second, she suddenly pulled her blanket over her head and asked carefully, Lao Wu, are you watching me? She very seldom cried, and she didn't want to let others see her crying. Even if it was Lao Wu from another planet. No. Lao Wu looked away and opened another program, pretending he didn't see anything. I was fixing a bug, why? Lu Zhi Wei slowly put down the blanket. Nothing, you continue fixing, don't worry about me, I want to be alone. Best if you can turn the sound off. All right. Lao Wu said compliantly. Rest early, see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. When she couldn't hear Lao Wu's voice anymore, she finally stopped controlling her tears. She hugged her blanket and cried. The grey little transparent entity finally had color that could be seen by the world. When Lu Zhi Wei woke up, it was still snowing outside. The whole room was quiet. Everything was as it was before, unchanged. She blinked blurry as she looked at the white snow swirling outside the window. Then she suddenly had a feeling. It was as if it was still the past. No system. No male protagonist halo. No birthday wish from Sang Wan Ci. They were still strangers. Everything was just a beautiful dream from last night. If you keep sleeping for a bit, you can eat lunch directly. Lao Wu's voice suddenly rang out. As if she was waking up from a dream. She felt that what Lao Wu said was quite similar to what parents would always say to lazy kids who liked sleeping in. Of course, she had never experienced this with her parents. But she at least had a sister. She knew it from watching her parents interact with her sister. Each time, Lu Si Jiao would get up unwillingly and ask, "Food's ready, what are we having today?" She never had a chance to ask before. Now that it happened, she learnt from Lu Si Jiao and joked with Lao Wu, "Food's ready, what are we having today?" Lao Wu, you want to eat my food? Lu Zhi Wei chuckled and was about to say it was a joke when Lao Wu exclaimed in surprise, "Wow, someone actually dares to eat my food." Lu Zhi Wei asked, "Why not?" Lao Wu couldn't help but reminisce, "I cooked for her once. After she finished eating, she asked me how I could cook food to the point that it was as poisonous as arsenic." His voice changed. "After I heard that, I stopped cooking for good." Lu Zhi Wei. "Sorry my eyes were so bad, I never realized you had such a talent. I don't dare to eat it anymore, farewell." She used all of her willpower to overcome her laziness and get out of bed to wash up. As she brushed her teeth, she swiped through her phone. Unexpectedly, she saw new replies from Si Jiao. "Si Jiao, gee, you don't have to thank me." "Si Jiao, isn't this what I should do?" "Si Jiao, oh yes, do you have anything you like? I'm working part-time and I have some cash, I can get you a present." "Si Jiao, also, your address and phone number." Si Jiao had her head lowered as she typed. She had never felt so embarrassed before. The person on the other side of the screen was clearly her biological sister. But when it came to her sister, she didn't know anything at all. She didn't know where her sister lived. She didn't know what her sister liked or disliked. She didn't know if her sister had changed her phone number. She didn't know if her sister was living well. She wasn't a good sister. But Lu Zhi Wei was a good sister. They didn't talk much, but whenever Lu Si Jiao's birthday came around, Lu Zhi Wei would always wish her happy birthday and send her a red packet with money. Although their conversations were always short and she would always somehow forget to reply, thus resulting in Lu Zhi Wei's chat being slowly pushed down until she totally forgot about it. As if in her life, there was no such person as Lu Zhi Wei. But even so, Lu Zhi Wei had never scolded her or said anything bad about her. It was always quiet, until her birthday came around again, then she would get wishes and red packets and Lu Zhi Wei would tell her to study well and eat well. She even remembered that Lu Si Jiao liked to draw when she was young, and she would wish for her to make her dreams come true. But Lu Si Jiao didn't even know what her sister liked. Going through their chat history these few days made her extremely ashamed. She was a really terrible sister. Now she wanted to try to get closer to her sister and make up for the past. Seeing her sister say she wanted to buy a present, Lu Zhi Wei was actually quite happy. No matter what, it was nice to be remembered. As for the present, forget it. She was still studying. How could Lu Zhi Wei want a present from a student? Lu Zhi Wei, no need, keep the money for yourself. I know your good intentions. Study hard. Lu Zhi Wei, it's getting cold out, remember to stay warm. Seeing these two messages, Lu Si Jiao suddenly felt despondent. She felt like Lu Zhi Wei was rejecting her. Is sister very disappointed at me for ignoring her in the past? Lu Zhi Wei certainly didn't think so deeply about it. After she replied, she washed her face and started considering what to eat. Then, the doorbell rang. A man in a suit and leather shoes was standing outside. He had a big, furry plush toy in one hand and a luxury gift bag in another. Lu Zhi Wei was confused. Who are you? Are you Miss Lu Zhi Wei? The unsmiling man asked. Lu Zhi Wei paused. Ah. Can I help you? Man, there are 2 parcels here for you. Lu Zhi Wei blinked. The man first held out the luxury gift bag. This is from Miss Sang. Lu Zhi Wei took it woodenly. The man then held out the big teddy bear. This is from Mr Ying. Lu Zhi Wei hugged it. It was so big it only left her eyes and the top of her head peeking out. The man left once he was done delivering the items, not staying for a single second more. Lu Zhi Wei hurriedly went back into her house and closed the door, putting the gifts on her bed. Wan Ci had gifted her a star and moon necklace. It was very pretty. Sitting at the foot of the bed, her gaze swapped between the necklace and bear, feeling as if it was a dream. After triple confirming, she finally dared to believe it, smiling happily. The little transparent entity really had birthday gifts. Coming close to Chinese New Year, Phoenix finally finished shooting and the cast could go home. Everybody congratulated and wished each other a happy new year. Wishing stuff like all the best for the future, hope we'll work together again next time. After packing all her stuff, Wan Ci dragged her tired body and followed Zhang Xianrui up the car. Fastening the seat belt, she turned her head to the side and closed her eyes to rest. Zhang Xianrui closed the car door and looked at the assistant who was driving, before looking at Wan Ci. She fiddled with her sleeve. "Where do you want to go?" Wan Ci opened her eyes slowly, looking at the reflection of herself in the glass. Her eyes were filled with tiredness. "Home," she said. Zhang Xianrui lifted a hand and leaned her face on it as she reminded, "It's the new year." Wan Ci clearly heard the reminder as she turned to look at her without any change in her expression. "My own home? You're really not planning on going home for the new year?" "No. Wan Ci. Sister Zhang." Wan Ci interrupted her tiredly, her eyes shimmering and hiding a trace of pitifulness. "Don't try to convince me." Zhang Xianrui looked at her and fell silent. Wan Ci turned her face around again and closed her eyes. "He doesn't lack company. And I can be by myself." Aside from her sister Lu Si Jiao's wishes, Lu Zhi Wei didn't receive anything from her parents. Not even a "Are you coming back for the new year?" Maybe they really forgot her. One daughter is enough for them. But what's the matter? It's always been like this. Why did she have to wish for this year to be different? Is it that this year, if she was alone, she couldn't have a good new year? No. Lu Si Jiao asked if she was going home for the new year. Thinking that since her parents didn't even mention it, then forget it. She replied a no and the matter was settled. Ever since then, she hadn't worried about her parents. She cleaned her house happily and prepared what she needed to welcome in the new year. Then she stuck an inverted fortune word on the door and it suddenly felt like the new year was around the corner. She purchased plenty of ingredients for the upcoming days. Snacks and drinks were all bought too. She was alone at home, so it wasn't a big expense. She had planned to stay at home the entire time this new year. After she finally finished making all these plans, the system gave her a new mission on the eve. As if afraid she was bored. Mission issued, coincidentally meet the female lead Wan Ci. System reminder, no time limit. Lu Zhi Wei. Wake up, not everybody's like me. The female lead has a family. She simply had no strength to complain. Don't rely on the fact that it's an idle drama to do whatever you want. It was Chinese New Year, where could she go to coincidentally meet the female lead? Were they expecting her to run to the female lead's house to force a coincidental meeting? She would be thrown out of the neighborhood by Wan Ci in that case. How do you know the female lead has a family? Lao Wu asked. Lu Zhi Wei. There's something wrong with your words. Lao Wu corrected himself naturally. No, how can you be sure the female lead will definitely go home and spend the new year with her family? What if did you never consider why a rich miss like Wan Ci would come out to be an actress and work hard? Lu Zhi Wei scratched her face. genuinely saying, "Never." Lao Wu. You really are a passable male lead. Lao Wu drove her out of the house with a tone that felt like a parent who didn't want to see their child stay at home. Go, hurry up and go, you've grown fat staying at home these days and cleaning. Hurry and go out, exercise more. Lu Zhi Wei was rushed to put on her coat, as she said unhappily, I was deep cleaning the house these few days, climbing up and down, how could I get fat? Regardless of whether you got fat or not, you have to exercise. Hurry up and go coincidentally meet your love. Lu Zhi Wei frowned and scratched her ear. What love? She was clearly just friends with Sang Wan Ci right now. If she had to date Sang Wan Ci right now. She thought about it. She couldn't think of anything. In the end, she was driven out of the house by the nagging Lao Wu. It was a cold winter day, the cold cut like blades on her face. Lu Zhi Wei wrapped herself in a thick down coat as she walked out of her housing estate, aimlessly. She didn't know where to go. She didn't know where Sang Wan Ci stayed either, so there was no way she could really go to her house to force a coincidental meeting. As a support system, Lao Wu gave a suggestion, why don't you go walk around the place that you were at when you two met for the first time? What's that place called again? Xing Mall. Lu Zhi Wei buried half her face in her scarf. Good that you remember. Lao Wu encouraged. Hurry up and go. Lu Zhi Wei was still thinking of something to say, but when she thought of Sang Wan Ci staying out alone on Chinese New Year's Eve, that really was quite saddening. With the darkening sky, she walked towards the bus stop. The faster she went, the faster she could get back and make herself dinner. The ingredients need not be the most expensive, but there must definitely be the vibe. Sang Wan Ci sat alone at the scenic viewpoint for a long time. The corals stood quietly in the sea, like the moon. Standing on the cliff, she could see everything. She liked it here, she could hear the sea and wind, entwining like a majestic symphony. The only thing out of place was her phone ringing. She fished out her phone and answered the call. Zhang Xianrui's voice came from the other side, with a hint of alarm, why is there the sound of the sea near you? Sang Wan Ci was calm, because I'm looking at it. Zhang Xianrui said nervously, it's so late at night, what are you looking at the sea for? Hurry up and go home, don't run around outside. Hearing the unease in her voice, Sang Wan Ci smiled, Sister Zhang, I'm not thinking of doing anything silly. Zhang Xianrui wasn't calmed, even so, you have to hurry up and go back. Running around and looking at the sea at night, it's not safe. Where are you? I'll go fetch you now. No need. It's Chinese New Year Eve, stay at home. Sang Wan Ci stood up from the wooden bench. I'll go back now. Knowing her character, Zhang Xianrui didn't press the issue, then hurry up and go home. Let me know when you're back. Happy New Year, sis. The whistling of the sea breeze drowned out her voice. The world around her suddenly became exceedingly lonely. She wasn't in a rush to go back to that empty house. Wearing a mask and cap, she left the viewing spot and went to a nearby mall. 365 days, the most crowded day would always be the New Year. Big red lanterns were hung up high, with colorful lanterns hanging on sturdy tree branches, the New Year decorations all around the streets. Every breath exhaled in the crowd was the spark of life. Compared to going home, she did prefer staying outside. Looking at the night sky and stars, looking at everyone's smiling face, looking at the red lanterns, only then did she feel like the new year was approaching. Since she had time, she decided to slowly walk around. At this moment, a shadow appeared in the crowd. The woman was wearing a down coat with a scarf wrapped around her neck, and her 2 hands were stuffed in a pair of grey, hand-knit gloves. Her head was twisting left to right as she looked for something. Wan Ci immediately recognized that pair of gloves. Lu Zhi Wei had knitted it on set, with 2 kitten heads on the back. She had finished knitting it right before the end of her scenes. Surprise showed in her eyes. She hadn't expected Lu Zhi Wei to appear here. Without knowing it, her feet brought her behind Lu Zhi Wei as she lightly said, "Lu Zhi Wei." The person in front of her got a shock, her body trembling under the big coat. It was oddly cute, almost as if she was a surprised doe. Hearing that familiar voice, Lu Zhi Wei immediately turned back and met with that beautiful pair of eyes. No matter where, no matter how much was covered up, she could always recognize her eyes. And with the system's voice reminding her that the mission was completed, it would be hard to not recognize her. Teacher sang, "It's you." Wan Ci blinked, "You recognize me?" "Of course." Lu Zhi Wei smiled. "After all, our teacher Sang is so pretty." She smiled, radiant as the autumn sun. Wan Ci couldn't help but take another glance, then asked, "What are you looking for?" "Good question." It immediately stumped Lu Zhi Wei, who was out and about doing her mission. She couldn't be honest and say she received a mission to find Wan Ci. After 2 seconds, she smiled awkwardly and politely. "Happiness is infectious. I was just looking around. Seeing everybody so happy, I would be happy too." This sort of nonsense, would Wan Ci believe it? She believed it. Because Lu Zhi Wei was such a pitiful person. She looked down, 2 hands in her pockets, not saying anything. Seeing it, Lu Zhi Wei asked, "What about you? Why are you here? Aren't you going home for the new year?" Wan Ci shook her head, becoming even more despondent. Thinking that she had touched her sore spot, Lu Zhi Wei quickly comforted her, "It's all right, look, I'm not going home either." Wan Ci looked at her with those pretty eyes, as if asking why. Rubbing her head, Lu Zhi Wei said lightly, "Ah, my family doesn't lack people, I want to go back." Wan Ci looked at her silently. The point of the new year was to reunite with the family. Since when did they consider the number of people was it that she was forgotten again? The wind came by silently. A lock of black hair gently fluttered against Lu Zhi Wei's face. The tip of her nose was red from the cold. Wan Ci suddenly reached out and touched the lock of hair. The cold tips of her fingers landed on Lu Zhi Wei's face, waking her from her reverie as she grabbed Wan Ci's hand. "It's so cold out, why didn't you wear gloves when going out? Look how cold your hands are." She frowned, pulling off her gloves to put it on Wan Ci. The her at this moment was like an older sister who was caring for her younger sister. Wan Ci suddenly felt like a puppet letting her do what she wanted. Before she realized it, she looked at the grey gloves on her hands. Then she looked at Lu Zhi Wei's fingers. "Then what about you?" Lu Zhi Wei stuffed her hands into her pockets. "I have pockets." So did Wan Ci. But Lu Zhi Wei still gave her gloves to her. Seeing the expression on her face, Lu Zhi Wei said, "You're smaller than me, I should take care of you." Wan Ci didn't agree with that. Many times, she felt like Lu Zhi Wei was the one who needed to be taken care of. Her emotions needed caring. She needed to be seen. She needed to be remembered. But she would never take the initiative to ask. She was used to acting as an older sister, taking care of Ying Xi Ze, taking care of Wan Ci, making people feel like she didn't need to be taken care of. But just like this new year, Was she really not going back because her family didn't lack people? Did she really not want someone to accompany her? Sang Wan Ci felt like the answer was obvious. If she didn't care, she wouldn't feel embarrassed about it. Lu Zhi Wei felt like they shouldn't just stand there like that. It was cold out and the wind was blowing. So she looked left and right, intending to find a more secluded shop to bring Sang Wan Ci in to warm up. The rest of the stuff could wait till later. But at this moment, she suddenly heard Sang Wan Ci ask, "Do you mind bringing me home?" Lu Zhi Wei. Sang Wan Ci looked at her, eyes glimmering, "I want to spend the new year with you." Lu Zhi Wei was stunned. She suddenly didn't know how to handle this question. She was like a new intern at her first job, panicking and afraid she wouldn't do a good job. Can she? Could she? Sang Wan Ci really wouldn't mind. She stood in the same spot, suddenly lost and deliberating with herself. The gloved hand slowly stretched out and took her cold hand. A soft and flirtatious sentence floated out from between Sang Wan Ci's lips, landing in her ear. "Don't reject me, sister." Hearing that, Lu Zhi Wei's ears immediately turned red. It was as if someone was blowing in her ear, and also as if someone was biting her earlobe. It was numb and itchy. How on earth did that happen? Why was Sang Wan Ci's calling sister not the same as others? God, who taught her how to say it like that? As her heart was exploding, the system came and considerately offered up a new mission. Mission issued, the emotions are rapidly rising, please sleep in the same bed. System reminder, no time limit. Lu Zhi Wei. She asked Lao Wu, "Do you know what I want to do right now?" Lao Wu, "What?" Lu Zhi Wei, "I want to put this randomly issuing mission system up on Pinduoduo so you can get slashed." Outrageous. Chapter 29. Lu Zhi Wei felt that this dog system was walking further and further down the path of inappropriateness. It had lost the original intention of being an auxiliary help system and was rushing down the path of outrageous, driving her, the host, towards ruin. What was emotions rapidly rising? Please sleep in the same bed. Don't randomly determine rising feelings. This clearly is friendship. Lao Wu had no control over the system's automatically generated missions. There was a program inside that was running autonomously and generating missions. As an administrator, he was just responsible for solving incidents generated by the program running. And the vibe between Lu Zhi Wei and Sang Wan Ci just now really was good. The program couldn't be blamed for thinking their feelings were increasing. Add to that the fact that there were too many unique points to this world. An immature, new world, a different male-female lead, and the female lead wouldn't follow the script too. With the system not issuing missions as it should, Lao Wu could only say, "Is it a surprise?" Lu Zhi Wei was tired to the point of wanting to die. She persuaded herself in her heart, forget it, forget it. Saving the world isn't an easy task to begin with. Forget it, forget it. Lao Wu said, "But you only have one bed in your house anyway, aside from sleeping in the same bed, there's nowhere else to sleep." Lu Zhi Wei immediately felt a headache coming on. She's a pampered rich miss, would she randomly sleep in the same bed with someone else? She watched enough television dramas to know that these rich young misses and masters were naturally pampered and wouldn't sleep in the same bed with just anybody. Even if they were of the same sex. The picky ones would even care about the bed sheets and even the surroundings. Lao Wu, you're stereotyping. Lu Zhi Wei said righteously, "This is my initial impression. I've never had the chance to interact with people like this before, so of course I can only see them in television dramas." Lao Wu complained, "Watch less of those useless idol dramas." Lu Zhi Wei, hello, do you remember that we're in an idol drama? Lao Wu. Please read at Julian Lien. WordPress. Com. Cough. Why do you have so much to say? Go and finish your mission quickly. Lao Wu started pretending like nothing had happened, urging her to hurry up. Lu Zhi Wei scolded him in her heart, then looked at Wan Ci. She was wearing a brown overcoat with a scarf wrapped around her neck, her hair gently draped over her shoulders. Half of her exquisite face was covered by a black mask and black cap. But as usual, those eyes were sparkling with energy, like stars. She could still feel Wan Ci's beauty, as if it was the rising sun. No matter how it appeared, it was always radiant and bright. You really want to spend the new year at my house? Lu Zhi Wei asked uncertainly. You want to mind? Wan Ci retorted, what's there to mind? Lu Zhi Wei said hesitantly, the place where I'm staying isn't big, it's very small. There's also nothing fun at home, I'm afraid you'll find it boring. Wan Ci said, it's enough as long as you're there. Lu Zhi Wei looked at her. Wan Ci said calmly, I'm spending the new year with you, not with your house. I was thinking of imposing on you for a few more days, not just the eve. She wasn't someone who cared about appearances, the person was the most important factor. Even if they had to go out to a small shop every day nearby, it would be fine as long as they were both happy. Since she had said that, Lu Zhi Wei had no reason to reject. After all, she couldn't leave a child to celebrate the new year alone outside, right? On the way back, Lu Zhi Wei didn't choose to take public transport again. She could, but Wan Ci, who was already somewhat famous, couldn't. If she was recognized, it would be more trouble. So she took a taxi with Wan Ci because her house was really quite far from Zinger Mall. The taxi driver was very passionate, immediately chatting with them once they boarded the vehicle. Wan Ci wasn't a talkative person, so she stayed quiet. Lu Zhi Wei, on the other hand, was chatting happily with the driver. From the road conditions to the prices of goods and even the festivities for the new year, the two of them were getting along like a house on fire. Wan Ci took turns looking between the scenery outside, and at Lu Zhi Wei, who was chatting away with the driver. In the dimly lit taxi, there was the occasional beam of light from the street lamps shining in and illuminating Lu Zhi Wei's face. Like an arrow of fire, it lit up Lu Zhi Wei's eyes in that instant. Although it was just a moment, it was enough to show Lu Zhi Wei's life, energy, and warmth. Wan Ci's gaze was inexplicably drawn toward her as she sat there with her gloved hands resting on her thighs. She suddenly understood why Ying Xi Ze liked sticking so closely to Lu Zhi Wei. Because she was warm. Staying by her side was like drawing close to a fire in the middle of the bone-chilling winter, immediately becoming warm and comfortable. After getting off the car, the driver bade them, Happy New Year. Lu Zhi Wei smiled and replied, Happy New Year, wishing you wealth and prosperity. She liked this sort of world. Even if it was a stranger she met by chance, there could be such a peaceful warmth. Even as a transparent person, she could still meet them when her luck was good. Lu Zhi Wei's house was slightly further in from the main street, and it would be especially peaceful and quiet at night. Wan Ci followed Lu Zhi Wei around the flower bushes and into the building, then they started climbing the stairs. There's no lift. It's just 3 floors. Lu Zhi Wei said with an apologetic expression. Wan Ci stayed silent, nodding her head. The corridor wasn't wide, but it was tidy and well kept. Lu Zhi Wei opened the door and placed her cotton slippers in front of Wan Ci. My house doesn't have floor heating, I'll fill a hot water bag later so you can hug it and be more comfortable. Wan Ci stopped her, it's all right, there's no need to trouble yourself. Lu Zhi Wei was insistent, taking the hot water bag out and heating up water. This was the first time she had a guest in her house, and this was the first person who was going to spend the new year with her. She definitely had to be a good host. Sit wherever, if you think it's cold then sit on the bed and cover yourself with the blanket, you'll warm up soon enough. That's how she got through every winter, coming home after work, eating and showering, and then burying herself in her blanket. After a while, she got used to it. She just didn't know if Wan Ci would be used to it. Wan Ci wasn't that spoil, she understood that there was no such thing as being too picky when you were in someone else's house as a guest. Lu Zhi Wei's house wasn't that big, at least whatever should have been there was there. There was the fortune word on the door, there were the lanterns hanging and everything looked warm and cozy. She sat down on the sofa, this provided her with the perfect angle to watch Lu Zhi Wei in the kitchen. But soon, she realized something was wrong. Lu Zhi Wei, you're not wearing slippers. Hearing this, Lu Zhi Wei's toes curled up suddenly. The black socks seemed exceptionally thin against the floor, especially in winter. Wan Ci immediately realized something else was wrong. You only have one pair of slippers at home. Lu Zhi Wei didn't look back, Wan Ci paused, you didn't have anybody come to your house before. Lu Zhi Wei's voice suddenly got lighter, It was only then that Wan Ci realized that there was only a single set of things in her house, nothing was in a pair. Even a cup for a guest to use was missing. This meant that from the past till now, she didn't have a single friend. She was living life alone. Wan Ci had never thought things were like this. She suddenly felt as if she was causing trouble for Lu Zhi Wei. Lu Zhi Wei. Hearing Wan Ci call her, Lu Zhi Wei finally was willing to turn around and look at her. She saw Wan Ci sitting on the sofa, having taken off the only pair of slippers in the house and hugging her legs as she stared at Lu Zhi Wei. Wear them. It wasn't a tone that allowed her to argue back. It wasn't like someone issuing orders though, more like a little kid throwing a tantrum. If she didn't wear the slippers, Kiddo Sang would be angry. God, she was adorable, Lu Zhi Wei exclaimed in her heart. With a calm expression, she smiled and said, it's all right even if I don't wear slippers, I'm used to it. Wear them. Wan Ci interrupted her. Lu Zhi Wei could only walk over and slip them on, then she heard Wan Ci ask, Lu Zhi Wei, am I causing trouble for you? Lu Zhi Wei and her house clearly were not prepared for a second person to be there. But she didn't consider that at all, abruptly asking to come over and then shamelessly tagging along. In the end, she had made things hard for Lu Zhi Wei. Don't think like that. Lu Zhi Wei wore the slippers and walked back to sanitize the cup before pouring a cup of hot water for Wan Ci, along with preparing the hot water bag. Placing the cup of hot water on the small table and the hot water bag by her side, Lu Zhi Wei smiled at her radiantly and honestly. I'm really very happy you're here as a guest. If we're talking about trouble, then why not say I'm the one troubling you? Clearly there's nothing prepared at home, but I still brought you over as a guest. Wan Ci was just about to refute that, when Lu Zhi Wei passed her the slippers. Wan Ci. Lu Zhi Wei's eyes were bright, I'll make a trip to the supermarket. It's nearby and I'll be back soon. Teacher Sang can rest here for a bit, once I come back, I'll prepare a meal. Hearing that, Wan Ci got up, I'll accompany you. Lu Zhi Wei pushed her back to sit on the sofa, it's cold outside, I'll go alone. She even patted Wan Ci's shoulders, listen to me. How could a guest follow along when running errands? Furthermore, didn't Wan Ci just call her sister? An older sister taking care of her younger sister was completely logical. Wan Ci felt the calmness and maturity of age from Lu Zhi Wei for the first time. This made it so that with just a few words, someone younger than her would listen obediently. As if by magic. Be safe on the way there. Wan Ci didn't insist further. Lu Zhi Wei smiled and nodded, taking her keys and heading out. In that moment when the door closed, her heart started beating a little faster. It was the first time. Someone was waiting for her to come home. After Lu Zhi Wei left, Wan Ci sat on the sofa unmoving. She looked at every inch of the house. It wasn't big, one living room and one washroom. The design of the house was clear, there were plenty of cute trinkets hanging around which made the room feel cozy. Wan Ci didn't know why, but the moment she saw those trinkets, she knew Lu Zhi Wei had made them. It was pretty good, at least Lu Zhi Wei had something to do when she was alone. By the sofa, there was a bed, which had a pretty soft mattress. Then there was a small white bedside table near the head of the bed. There was a small rug between the bedside table and the wall, with a giant white, furry bear soft toy and 2 cushions on it. Wan Ci recognized the bear, it was Ying Xi Ze's birthday present to Lu Zhi Wei. It was big and expensive, but she felt this toy wasn't practical. Ying Xi Ze really didn't know how to pick a present, Lu Zhi Wei probably had to rack her brain to figure out where to put it. Thinking about Zhang Rui, Wan Ci called her, I'm at Lu Zhi Wei's house. Zhang Rui, what are you doing at her house? Wan Ci's voice was steady, celebrating the new year. Zhang Rui, ah. Sorry, are you two very close? When Wan Ci said she would intrude for a few days, it wasn't only the eve of the new year. She would stay till at least after the second day. So she would need a towel, toothbrush, and more. But Lu Zhi Wei didn't know which sort she would like, so before she bought an item, she would send a photo to Wan Ci and let her choose. In the end, Wan Ci was much easier to please than she thought. Anything, I'm not fussy, they're all okay, you can decide. That was Wan Ci's answer. Lu Zhi Wei didn't know what anything meant, so she could only buy the best and most expensive ones that looked the nicest. It was so rare for a guest to be in her house, it was fine to splurge a little. Lu Zhi Wei lugged a bunch of stuff to the cashier and when she got there, a bundle of red caught her eye. Before she went home, she specially took the long way to withdraw some cash from the bank. Then she finally rushed home, afraid Wan Ci had waited for too long. When she opened the door, she saw Wan Ci standing by the bed, as if she was talking to someone. But hearing her, Wan Ci suddenly fell quiet and turned around, "You're back." Lu Zhi Wei asked, "You were taking a phone call?" Blinking, Wan Ci nodded and kept her phone back in her pocket. Lu Zhi Wei asked apologetically, "I didn't disturb you, did I?" Wan Ci shook her head, "No." Then she walked over and helped to take the bags from her hands, "Sorry for the trouble. It was quite heavy." She really should have followed, so she could at least help to carry the stuff. Lu Zhi Wei replied with "It's no trouble" and slipped on the new cotton slippers, removing her coat before putting on an apron. As she rolled up the sleeves of her sweater, she asked, "Are you hungry? Sit down and watch television first, I'll go cook now." She started looking for the remote as she mumbled, seemingly excited, "I remember the New Year's Eve program is about to start." Wan Ci looked at her side profile, "You like watching the New Year's Eve program?" According to what she knew, most young people nowadays didn't really watch that program much. Even if they did watch it, it was to complain about it. Why did Lu Zhi Wei look as if she was truly happy to be watching it? Lu Zhi Wei crouched in front of the television as she pressed the remote. The space between the television and the coffee table was so small, she took up most of it just by squatting down. It's not that I really like the program, it's for the atmosphere, you know. Miss Sang, who didn't watch television over the New Year, vocalized her confusion. Looking at the hosts wearing their celebratory clothes, smiling and saying Happy New Year, I feel as if there really are people celebrating with me. That's the atmosphere. Lu Zhi Wei tuned the channel and she placed the remote by Sang Wan Ci's side. Here, you can adjust the channel to whatever you want to watch, I'm going to cook. She tied up her hair and prepared to cook dinner. The sounds from the television didn't change, it was still the festive New Year's Eve program. She knew she was different from others. For the people around her age, if they watched the New Year's Eve program, it was just for the fun of it. But she watched it for that Happy New Year greeting and for the atmosphere. She also wanted someone to be by her side when she was celebrating the New Year. Even if there wasn't someone, then if someone could wish her a Happy New Year, that would be good too. No matter what, even a transparent entity had the right to celebrate the New Year. Lu Zhi Wei. Sang Wan Ci's voice floated over. Happy New Year. Her hands stilled. Then they moved again after 2 seconds. But this time, Lu Zhi Wei had a smile on her face. Thank you, wishing our teacher Sang a Happy New Year too. This was a new year that was worth her waiting for. I'll help you. Sang Wan Ci took the initiative to offer. She couldn't just sit and wait for food. The dishes for this New Year's Eve were more sumptuous than previous years. There was fish, noodles, and dumplings. In the past, because she was alone, Lu Zhi Wei would just eat dumplings and call it a day. This year, she made some money from filming and Sang Wan Ci was around. So Lu Zhi Wei decided to go big. It was the new year, being happy was the most important part. Teacher Sang, please eat whatever you want and don't be shy. My cooking's quite ordinary, please don't mind it. Knowing Sang Wan Ci liked broccoli, Lu Zhi Wei even fried a small plate of it for her. Sang Wan Ci tried the food, you're being too humble, it's very good. You took classes before. This was undoubtedly the highest compliment of someone's cooking skill. Lu Zhi Wei laughed, I watched and learned from videos. Teacher Sang is giving me too much respect. The two of them had an excellent reunion dinner as friends this New Year's Eve. After they finished eating, Lu Zhi Wei got up and was about to bring the bowls and cutlery in to wash when she accidentally kicked the leg of the table. A bang rang out. The lethal pain immediately ran up her leg from her foot, amplified hundreds of times in her body, as it assaulted her senses mercilessly, making her feel as if she was about to die from the pain. Sang Wan Ci saw her suddenly hug her leg, crying out in pain, Are you okay? Lu Zhi Wei was in too much pain to reply. She curled up in a ball on the sofa, the tears in her heart about to run dry. Why? Why did humans have to feel pain? Do you need medicine? Sang Wan Ci asked worriedly. Where's the first aid kit? Lu Zhi Wei raised a hand and forced herself to wave it, indicating she was fine. Sang Wan Ci looked at her wrinkled up face and she frowned, leaning over to grab her slim foot, let me see if it's serious. Feeling embarrassed, Lu Zhi Wei grabbed her hand and squeezed out a slight smile, it's okay, don't worry. Looking at her eyes, Sang Wan Ci asked, your tears are already slipping out, you're okay. Lu Zhi Wei quickly wiped her tears away, I'm really okay, I'm just scared of pain. Even if it's just a bit of pain. Sang Wan Ci suddenly had an epiphany. So it was because she was so scared of pain, that she stood there for a long while after hitting the traffic light and the tree. She needed more time to get over her pain than other people. So that's what it was. She truly didn't expect this. At that time, she thought that it was because Lu Zhi Wei was just dazed by the knock and hadn't reacted in time. Seeing Wan Ci stop asking, Lu Zhi Wei took off her sock to look at her poor foot. Luckily, it was just red. Aside from a bit of pain, there was no injury. She held onto her foot gently, despair on her face. But a bit of pain was a big thing to her. Seeing that, Wan Ci asked hesitantly again, "Let us apply some medicine." Lu Zhi Wei shook her head and waited until the pain had mostly subsided, then turned around and said, "Go take a shower first, you can wear my pajamas." The two of them looked to be around the same height and figure, it should be fine for Wan Ci to wear her clothes. She stood up and lifted her foot, hopping over to her closet as she took out her pajamas for Wan Ci. Wan Ci continued looking at her foot. Lu Zhi Wei waved her hand, "This is a small thing, it's fine. Go take a shower and warm yourself up." Wan Ci said, "You rest for a bit then, I'll wash the dishes after I'm done taking a shower." Lu Zhi Wei waited for her to go in, then sat on the bed looking at her toes and sucking in some deep breaths. Then, she hobbled over to clean up the dishes. She wouldn't really let a guest do chores. When Wan Ci came out of the shower, Lu Zhi Wei had already washed the dishes and cleaned the table. Looking around, Wan Ci found that there was nothing else she could do. She looked a little lost, feeling as if she was here to just freeload off Lu Zhi Wei. Lu Zhi Wei didn't realize it, pulling her over to sit on the bed and covering her with a blanket. "It's warm under the blanket, cover yourself up, don't catch a cold. I'm going to bathe now, stay here for a bit." Turning her head to look at her, Wan Ci nodded gently. Oddly, Lu Zhi Wei felt like she was a little cute at that moment. When she got out of the shower, she saw Wan Ci sitting and leaning against the headboard with the blanket over her as she quietly watched the television. She looked stiff and not completely at ease. Seeing Lu Zhi Wei come out, she suddenly lifted up the blanket, as if inviting her in. "It's warm." Just like that, Lu Zhi Wei burrowed under her blanket and sat beside her. The two of them sat there quietly. There was only the sound of the television, the whole world was so quiet that even if a pin dropped, they could have heard it. After a while, Lu Zhi Wei finally heard Wan Ci ask, "Was it always like this in the past? Eating alone, watching television alone, sleeping when it got late? Nothing that involved the world outside? Almost as if she was forgotten by the world." Lu Zhi Wei didn't deny it. This was her life, there was nothing embarrassing about it. She could feel Wan Ci's gaze resting on her body. Scorching and temporary, it was moved away soon. The atmosphere became quiet again. She started feeling like this topic was too awkward. Awkward to the point that every silent moment now felt like she was being pitied for her past. She didn't want that. So she changed the channel and asked nonchalantly, "What do you want to eat tomorrow morning?" "There are dumplings and noodles in the freezer, we just need to boil them in some water. If you don't want to eat those, I can make other stuff for you." After a moment of thought, she continued, "If you want to eat takeaway, that's fine too, but there won't be many shops open on the first day of the new year." Wan Ci considered it for a moment, then asked seriously, "Which option will let you sleep for a bit longer?" Lu Zhi Wei couldn't help but laugh, "We still need to consider this for breakfast." "Yes." Wan Ci looked serious. "I hope you can rest more." Lu Zhi Wei suddenly couldn't say a word. Her hand that was changing channels on the remote stopped as well. She totally didn't expect Sang Wan Ci to be so considerate. Then let us have dumplings, it looks like you quite like the dumplings I make. Sang Wan Ci nodded. Lu Zhi Wei definitely had a God-gifted talent for working with her hands. Not only was her craftsmanship good, but her cooking was also good. The food she made was delicious and without flaws. Especially the dumplings she made. The skin was thin and the filling was abundant, with fresh ingredients used. Paired with some dipping sauce, it was unreasonably delectable. Sang Wan Ci liked it and Lu Zhi Wei was also happy with her culinary skills affirmed. Dumplings it is then. Let us watch the show. She changed the channel to the local broadcast station. The host was excitedly announcing, coming up next, let us invite Meng Lianyu and Ji Feng. A familiar silhouette showed up on the screen. Lu Zhi Wei's love Meng DNA immediately activated. She hugged the pillow and exclaimed subconsciously, her voice showing her agitation, "Oh, Teacher Meng." Her excited tone landed. Sang Wan Ci slowly turned her head to look at her. The air stilled. At that moment, Lu Zhi Wei finally remembered something important. Right now, I am supposed to be her fan, right?